He preached forgiveness every Sunday, led thousands in prayer, had dinner with governors, and gave speeches about morality, faith, and love. But behind closed doors, he was a monster. And for 8 excruciating hours, his wife lived a nightmare no sermon could cleanse. What happens when the man trusted with the pulpit becomes the very evil he warned about? This is the haunting case of ex-minister tortures wife for 8 hours. Stay with us, because the ending will leave you shaken. Reverend Elijah Carter was a name known throughout Georgia. A former state minister of family affairs turned televangelist, he built his legacy on values. His Sunday broadcasts reached over 300,000 homes. He founded charity schools. He was invited to the governor's prayer breakfast annually. To the public, he was a symbol of virtue. To his wife, Noelle Carter, he was a ticking bomb. They met when she was 22, volunteering at his church. By 25, she was married, living in a mansion, and forbidden to speak to anyone without his approval. Behind the stained glass, there were screams no one ever heard. The abuse started slow: isolation, spiritual guilt, control masked as God's order. Noelle was told not to wear pants, not to question him, to obey as a wife of the word. But over the years, the violence became physical, always behind closed doors, always followed by flowers, tears, and Bible verses. Friends noticed her change. Her smile faded. Her presence became rare. But Elijah was powerful, respected, and Noelle was silent. Until one Friday night in April, when everything exploded. It was April 19, 2024. The staff had gone home. The housekeeper later testified Noelle seemed anxious, like she knew something was coming. That night, at exactly 9:12 p.m., neighbors heard a loud crash, glass breaking, a dog barking. But no one called the police. Inside the mansion, Noelle had found something. A letter. A printed email. Proof Elijah was secretly funneling money from the ministry into a private account overseas, and that he sent money to a woman in Florida. When she confronted him, Elijah exploded. And what followed was 8 hours of sadistic horror. What happened that night is hard to say out loud. But for justice, it must be told. 9:30 p.m., he tied her wrists with leather belts. He removed his belt and beat her across the back and legs. Noelle tried to fight back. He threw her against a mirror. 10:15 p.m., he forced her to kneel for an apology prayer, while slapping her repeatedly every time she cried. 11 p.m., he turned up the volume of a worship CD and began quoting scripture as he poured cold water over her head, saying she needed baptismal cleansing. Midnight, Noelle passed out from pain. He dragged her to the guest room. She regained consciousness when he started burning her with a cigar. 2:45 a.m., he sat in a chair and lectured her for 2 hours straight about a temptation while holding a gun. 5:18 a.m., she begged him to let her go. He said, "You'll leave when God tells me." He finally passed out from exhaustion on the couch. And that's when Noelle, bloodied and barely able to walk, crawled out the side door, collapsed on the lawn, and a neighbor finally called 911. Bodycam footage later released showed officers arriving at 6:07 a.m. One said, "She looked like something out of a war zone. Dried blood on her arms. Burns. Bruising. Still whispering scripture like she was trying to stay grounded." Elijah was arrested without resistance. He calmly opened the door in a robe and said, "I assume you're here about my wife." Inside, they found a belt, a bloodied Bible, a burnt cigar, and a diary Noelle had been keeping, documenting 12 years of abuse. Her final entry that night read, "If I don't make it out, tell the world what he is." The public reaction was immediate and divided. Some couldn't believe it. Others whispered they'd always suspected something off about Reverend Carter. The evidence was overwhelming. Noelle's injuries matched the timeline exactly. Financial documents showed embezzlement. Texts to his Florida mistress were recovered. He'd been using church funds for secret travel, hotel rooms, and gifts. Yet Elijah's defense team argued Noelle was emotionally unstable and trying to frame him. But his audio system betrayed him. Unbeknownst to him, the worship CD he blasted during the assault triggered a smart speaker recording, an accidental archive of the abuse. The audio captured slaps, crying, scripture quotes, and screaming. It was played in court. The trial was broadcast live on court TV. It drew national headlines. Man of God, or monster? The fall of Reverend Carter. 8 hours in hell, Noelle's survival. Noelle took the stand. Her testimony was harrowing, courageous, raw. She showed her scars, some fresh, some old. The prosecution played clips from the smart speaker audio. In one segment, Elijah shouted, "This is what happens when a wife questions her husband's authority." In another, she sobbed, "Please. I'm sorry. Please stop." The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty. On all counts. Elijah Carter was sentenced to 40 years in prison without parole. The courtroom erupted. Noelle cried, not because of joy, but release. The judge called the case one of the most egregious examples of spiritual abuse crossing into violent, calculated sadism. Elijah's church was shut down. His assets were seized. His followers disbanded. The governor rescinded all public honors. Noelle went into hiding, supported by domestic violence advocates, trauma counselors, and a GoFundMe that raised over $300,000. Today, Noelle Carter is slowly rebuilding her life. She gave one anonymous interview to a nonprofit. "He taught me the gospel of fear. But I'm learning the gospel of freedom now." She hopes to one day speak publicly, on her own terms. Not as a victim, but as a survivor. What do you think? How did a man like Elijah hide in plain sight for so long? Could this happen in your community? Should churches be held legally responsible for enabling abuse? This case wasn't just about one woman's suffering, it was about the danger of unchecked power, even in the hands of those we're told to trust the most. Like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more unflinching looks at the darkest stories hidden in plain sight. Drop your thoughts below. This has been Secrets of the Case.